and we invited Julie Hart. We invited Julie Hart from Dutchess Land Conservancy to give us a presentation on Clinton's water resources. All of us who live in Clinton get their water from the ground. We have wells, so it's interesting to know where all that water is coming from, and we've got aquifers and such. And in Julie's presentation, she will be referring to 4 of the 20 natural resources inventory maps that the Climate Smart Communities Task Force had created, pardon, back in 23. And so that was, this is a way that we're able to share those maps. And the town planning board and the zoning board and the CAC do refer to these maps when the town receives applications for people wanting to build our house and such like that. And this is going to be on YouTube, just so you know. And I guess that's all I want to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Barbara. Okay, so can everybody hear me okay? Yes. I can't. Gosh, I hope not. I only have a limited number of things I can clip it to. I can holler. Okay. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming. I'm astonished to see so many people willing to be indoors on a day like this, and I really appreciate you coming out. My name is Julie Hart. I'm an ecologist and an educator at the Dutchess Land Conservancy. Now, how many people have heard of the Dutchess Land Conservancy before we start? Oh, okay, excellent. So I don't have to give you the long version. We're here today to talk about exploring and understanding Clinton's water resources. Did I shamelessly poach this photo off of your town's website? Yes, I did. So just really quickly, a land trust is a nonprofit that works to conserve land, and there's a lot of different mechanisms for doing that. The Dutchess Land Conservancy is celebrating our 40th anniversary this year. We started in 1985, and we work throughout Dutchess County and surrounding areas to protect land. We are at, let's see, I think we hold 450 conservation easements throughout that area on a total of almost 48,000 acres. So that's a pretty substantial contribution to the land protection landscape in Dutchess County. And we work with a lot of partners to do that. So as you know, there's a variety of conservation organizations around, from national organizations like the Nature Conservancy and Trust for Public Land, to regional organizations like Scenic Hudson, which works throughout the Hudson Valley through, I think, a 9-county area. And the local organizations, and I'm sure many of you are also familiar with the Winnicke Land Trust that works in the Red Hook-Rhinebeck area and also within the town of Clinton. So all of these organizations have our own little niche. We're all kind of pursuing the same mission of land protection and maintaining the integrity of the ecosystems that land supports. And with the intention that maintaining these intact ecosystems is better for wildlife, better for human life, and better for everyone. The land needs to be allowed to do what it does, which is support life. So we're here to talk about water resources, and I want to start by putting that in perspective. When we think about water resources, what pops into our minds? What kind of water bodies are we thinking about here? Oceans, lakes, ponds, rivers and streams. Yeah, exactly. And by the way, I want this to be an informal conversation. Don't be shy about asking questions. If you have a question, please just raise your hand, because if everybody hollers at me at the same time, I'll get all confused and then it's not going to end well. But please do feel free to ask questions. Don't save them for the end. This can be a really interactive conversation. So of all the water on Earth, most of it is salt water. Almost all of it is salt water. Close to 98% of the water on Earth is salt water. That's our oceans, basically. A tiny sliver of that is fresh water. And of that fresh water, the majority of it is in the ice caps and the glaciers, about 3/4 of it. And another almost quarter is groundwater. That's the water that is in our aquifers, in those rock formations, not to be confused with soil water, which we'll get to in a minute. But the water that is not already in a glacier or in the groundwater is those other freshwater sources. And as you can see, that's a tiny sliver of a tiny sliver. And so that's really what we're here to talk about today, the water that's in those lakes and streams and rivers. The water in the soil, does anybody want to take a guess as to how that's different from groundwater? In terms of like how it's getting into that layer, what it's doing there, how active it is? Any thoughts on? Aquifer. Yeah, so think about, and we'll get to this in a little bit, think about the layers. So when we talk about groundwater, the layer above there, that's the water that's in the rock formations, in the bedrock, basically. Water in the soil, if you think about how soil is formed, we'll talk about this a little more in a bit. Soil, okay, so here's the way I think of it. Soil is the transition layer between rock and sky. Because if you think about what soil is made out of, it has a mineral component and it has an organic component. So if you take some soil and you put it in a jar full of water and you shake it up, some stuff is going to float to the surface. That's the organic component. That's the decaying leaves and branches, dead organisms that are being broken down. That's the layer of decay that's being cycled back into the system. But the majority of the structure of that soil, in most cases, is mineral. It's weathered from the bedrock. And so the bedrock is being constantly weathered into smaller and smaller particles. And so when you talk about soil, you're talking about a mineral component that came from the bedrock and an organic component that came from the sky. Does everybody know what I mean when it came from the sky? Think about photosynthesis. So the carbon, which is the most notable element in those organic, in that organic fraction of the soil, is from the sky, basically, because of photosynthesis. Trees and all plants are taking in the carbon dioxide from the air. They basically eat carbon dioxide and poop oxygen, much to our delight because we need the oxygen. But in the process, they're taking that carbon dioxide as a gas and they're making it part of themselves. So if you think about what's in wood, why does it burn? It's got a lot of carbon in it. That carbon came from the air. And so when those plants are breaking down in that organic layer in the soil, that carbon came from the air. And so that's why I think, this is a little bit of a tangent, but thinking of the soil as that transition layer between rock and sky. So when we're talking about water in the soil comes in varying depths. Probably you've stuck a shovel in the ground and hit bedrock. But a lot of times you have soil that can be inches to feet deep. So a lot of the water in the soil is, if you think about what's happening during a drought, that's the water that's being drawn down that you're losing. You know what, during a drought you have powder dry soils. If you stick a trowel in the ground, it's just nothing's really holding it together. That water has evaporated or being taken up. And so that's a source of water that's constantly in flux depending on the drought conditions, basically. Okay, so we have a tiny fraction of a tiny fraction of a tiny fraction, and that's what we're talking about today. Yeah?
Is precipitation the exclusive source of fresh water?
Is precipitation the exclusive source of fresh water? That is an excellent question. I think I should have brought a diagram of the water cycle. That is a good point. So I think ultimately yes, because the water cycle is that water that's in the atmosphere, which you can see is the dark blue slice on the bottom there. Water in the atmosphere through the process of precipitation is hitting the ground. A lot of it is running off into the stream. To is a big part of that. Like, this is your home, and it matters to you what happens here. It matters that the water stays clean. It matters to you that we still have forests, that we still have wildlife habitat. And that's really, really important. That's a big part of what we focus on at the Dutchess Land Conservancy is those are direct drainage into the Hudson River. So that's like the Saw Kill, the Landsman Kill, the Ender Kill, the Crum Elbow. And then on the east side of the county, you have the 10-mile river, which, as you know, goes into the Housatonic River. It doesn't go into the Hudson at all. So the Dutchess County is actually really interesting that it's perched on this divide. Today, something that I like to say a lot is that water has only one master, and that is gravity. So I know as humans, we're always trying to, impound water. We build dams, we build all kinds of, dikes and levees to try to control the water. And that works up to a point. Everything's going to fail at some point, hopefully hundreds of years from now. But it's really important to remember that water's as we're going through these maps. I've been a neighbor of Clinton for 30 years now. I lived in the town of Washington, I lived in the town of Stanford, I live in the town of Milan. So I've always been your neighbor. Topography. That's one of the things I've always really enjoyed about Clinton, and I really enjoy about my own town of Milan, is that it's a hilly place. You have all of these sort of little parallel rocky ridges. You always know to maintain the microclimate that they need to survive. So you'll see a lot of overlap in these two maps, that the more climate resilient areas are also the hillier areas.
Excuse me. Functionality in this context, does it exclusively have to do with how flora and fauna will survive or thrive? Or is there something
know each one and how they all, work together.
Yeah.
That was good work by the Climate Smart Communities Task Force.
Mm-hmm.
2 members are here today, and then there's 3 of us from the CAC, so we've learned a lot.
Can we get the presentation?
Yes, would you mind, I was going to ask, can you
Sure.
send me the PDF for that? I can, for the
Mhm.
presentation. We
Sure.
can probably send that out. And also the YouTube, we'll put a link for that for folks who missed. And there is information here on the table, if anybody'd like to take it. Oh, yeah, there's the,
And the NRI, which is online. It's definitely worth a read. This is a really, really comprehensive document, and shout out to all of you who put so much time into producing this. This is a great resource for your town.
could you read the title, please?
This is the Town of Clinton Natural Resources Inventory. It's long. It's 120 pages, but it's full of maps and tables and just so much information. It's very well done.
If you don't know your yard, what kind of soil do you have? Where the lime in it, you don't, what's growing, what's not growing, why isn't it growing? Even just when I make my tea kettle of water and I see why do I need to clean it every 4 days?
Yeah.
There's lime in it.
Yeah.
It's the lime, and so you begin to understand more of your.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Homeowners here, we had all of those maps, we had an overlay of tax parcels put on the map. It's faint, but especially if you blow it up digitally, you can see tax parcels, so you'll be able to see where you are.
Or why do you have so many apples? You've got all the apple orchards, why do they grow so well?
Mm-hmm.
They have shallow root.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting.
I just one question.
Oh.
Do you know what percentage of Clinton is held in a land trust or a conservancy arrangement?
Oh, that's a really good question. There's a map for that.
It's in the NRI.
It is. I don't know percentage. I don't know exact acreage either.